Welcome to True Echo, where stories that seem unbelievable turn out to be unforgettable. Every episode, we dive into moments that shake the room, reveal hidden truths, and challenge what we think we know. Today's story? It starts with a lie people assumed, and ends with a truth that nobody saw coming. Some children learn to walk. Others learn to disappear. Jaden Miles mastered both by the time he turned 10. At Oak Ridge Preparatory School, where every hallway is named after donors, and every classroom smells like cedarwood polish, students were taught Latin phrases, legacy loyalty, and how to shake a hand like a diplomat. But nobody taught them how to see a boy like Jaden. And he'd long since stopped trying to be seen. Each morning, Jaden stepped out of a weathered sedan in a navy blazer that always itched at the collar. He carried his backpack like a second skin and walked with eyes down, not out of fear, but calculation. He knew what his presence in that space meant: tolerated, not welcomed; monitored, not celebrated. And on the morning of the classroom presentations, he knew exactly what lay ahead. The assignment was simple: present what your parent does for work. But for Jaden, that question wasn't simple. It was loaded. Because the truth didn't always defend you. Sometimes it got you ridiculed. So when he told his father Marcus, the quiet man who drove him every morning, who never turned the radio on, who could stop a conversation with just a look, that he planned to say his dad worked at the Pentagon, Marcus didn't protest. He only reminded him, some truths don't need to be defended. They just need to be spoken. Jaden nodded. He believed that. Or at least he wanted to. But in room 204, Miss Letha Bennett, poised like a marble bust come to life, had already decided which students would shine, and which would serve as cautionary tales. And Jaden, with his perfectly folded paper, was about to walk into her spotlight. His voice was calm. My dad works in cybersecurity operations at the Pentagon. The silence that followed wasn't awe. It was disbelief. Chase Edmonds, whose mother donated a new chemistry wing, snorted. Sure he does. Does he mop the floors or scan the badges? Miss Bennett smirked. Let's try to stick to reality, Jaden. No one corrected her. No one clapped. Even Leo, Jaden's one true friend, stayed quiet, his loyalty crushed under the weight of social survival. Jaden returned to his seat with trembling hands hidden under the desk. His truth had been laughed at. Erased. But that night, Marcus Miles didn't say much. He didn't need to. I'll be there, he said. Not as a show. Not to prove himself. But because someone had mocked his son for speaking truth. And someone else, far more dangerous, was already watching. Marcus Miles wasn't the kind of man who raised his voice. He didn't need to. Every move he made was deliberate. Every silence he kept was loaded with meaning. That night, after Jaden finally spoke the words, "They laughed when I said you work at the Pentagon," Marcus didn't respond with rage. He responded with stillness. But Jaden could tell. Something had shifted. Dinner ended early. The dishes were washed with mechanical precision. Marcus locked the door twice instead of once. And later, when the house was quiet, he stood in his study not as a father, but as something else entirely. The glow from his military-grade laptop lit up the room. What looked like an ordinary workspace, a few framed photos, some books, a battered leather chair, was actually mission control. Marcus monitored cybersecurity threats for the U.S. government. But tonight, his focus narrowed to a single anomaly: Oak Ridge Prep. A foreign IP had pinged the school's internal server. Not once. Not randomly. 4 separate access attempts, all targeting student records. All masked through international proxies. And one student profile had been queried repeatedly. Jaden Miles. Marcus didn't need to guess why. His son's name was now tied to his own. That classroom humiliation? It was more than petty bias. It had flagged them. Somewhere, someone had started watching. He tapped into Pentagon resources, quietly. He didn't escalate the breach officially. Not yet. Instead, he flagged the activity, traced it, and ran containment. But he knew, they weren't after grades or attendance logs. They were mapping families. Families like his. Families with access to high-level information. Jaden had been marked. Not for embarrassment, but for leverage. Meanwhile, Jaden sat in his room, staring at the ceiling, trying to replay the moment over and over. The words. The laughter. Miss Bennett's smirk. He didn't feel angry. He felt erased. The next morning, Marcus drove him to school without music. As always. But something about the silence had changed. It wasn't thoughtful this time. It was coiled. Jaden noticed. You're really coming to Parents' Day? Marcus nodded. I said I would. But can you get off work? You know, your real work. Marcus turned toward him at the red light. They don't schedule dignity, son. You make time for that. The car pulled up in front of Oakage. The usual row of Teslas and black SUVs lined the curb. As Jaden stepped out, Marcus said, "Remember, just because they doubt you doesn't mean you're wrong." Jaden nodded and walked through the gate. He didn't know that at that exact moment, 3 blocks away, a black SUV idled under a flickering street lamp. The man inside wore a gray uniform labeled Custodial Services. He raised a camera, snapped a photo of Jaden, then spoke into his collar mic. Target confirmed. Inside, Oakage was its usual pristine self. Polished hallways. Whispered footsteps. Smiles that only lasted when adults were looking. Jaden moved like he always did, quietly, carefully, calculated. But there was something different in the air. Attention. A sense of something watching. That day in math class, Jaden noticed the substitute tech assistant. A man he hadn't seen before. He wore a badge that didn't match the usual Oakage staff IDs. He didn't speak. He just observed. During lunch, Jaden sat alone under the oak tree. Normally Leo would join him. But not after yesterday. Not after Miss Bennett. Still, someone had joined him. His father. Marcus walked calmly through the school's side gate, nodded to the security guard, and sat beside Jaden on the stone bench. "You okay?" he asked. Jaden shrugged. "I don't know." Marcus looked at him for a moment. "You remember what I told you about silence? That it's not weakness. It's awareness." Marcus nodded. "Good. You're going to need to remember that." Jaden tilted his head. "Why?" Marcus stood. "Because there's more going on here than a bad teacher and some spoiled kids." He walked away before Jaden could ask anything else. But Jaden knew, this wasn't over. That night the SUV returned. Same make. Same spot. Same silence. But Marcus didn't close the blinds. He watched back. Then at 2:11 a.m. his terminal pinged. Another intrusion attempt. Same signature. Same destination. Oakage Preparatory School. Only this time the signal wasn't just probing. It was syncing. Trying to link the school's servers to student home networks. Trying to follow the data trail back to addresses. Devices. People. Jaden. Marcus called Langley. "Code red," he said. "What do you need?" the voice asked. "Access." And silence. The secure channel opened seconds later. In the living room, Jaden stirred restlessly in his sleep. He didn't know that his name was now on a list. A short one. Marked Tier A. 8 students. All children of high-clearance officials. And he was at the top. Marcus stared at the screen. At the signal. At the intent behind the code. "This isn't surveillance," he murmured. "It's acquisition. And in 2 days on Parents' Day, whoever was watching was going to try to come closer." The morning of Parents' Day arrived with clear skies and polished floors. Oakage Prep gleamed like a brochure, a fortress of prestige and performance. But beneath its ivy-draped facade, something dangerous pulsed. Unseen. Unspoken. Jaden dressed slowly. He buttoned his shirt, adjusted his tie, and stared into the mirror longer than usual. His fingers hesitated at the knot. Behind him, Marcus appeared silently in the doorway. "Need help?" Jaden shook his head, finishing the tie with a small tug. "I think I got it." Marcus smiled slightly. "You do." Downstairs, the Miles household felt unusually calm, too calm. Like the stillness before a detonation. Marcus moved with quiet purpose, slipping a small, encrypted flash drive into his blazer pocket. His Pentagon badge clipped beneath the lapel, barely visible. He carried no weapons. At least, not the kind most people recognized. As they approached the school, the black SUV wasn't where it had been the last 2 mornings. It was gone. That, Marcus noted, was worse than if it had stayed. He walked Jaden to the entrance, scanning the security station. Something had changed. New faces in Oakage uniforms. Some were substitutes. Others were federal agents. "I'll see you inside," Marcus said. Jaden hesitated. "Do you think they'll believe me this time?" Marcus looked his son in the eyes. "It doesn't matter. The truth doesn't ask permission." Jaden nodded, stepping through the tall glass doors. Inside, Parents' Day was in full swing. Fresh-cut flowers adorned the hallway tables. Teachers smiled like polished actors on cue. Coffee was served in ceramic mugs, real ones, not paper. Parents shook hands with the same energy they used to close deals. Miss Bennett stood at the front of room 204 like the host of a charity gala. She greeted each guest with a compliment sharpened to match their title. And then she saw Marcus Miles. Standing in the doorway in a tailored suit. Composed. Clipped to his chest, his Pentagon badge shimmered beneath the lights. Unmistakable, unarguable. Time slowed. Her voice faltered. Her smile twitched. Mr. Miles. I wasn't sure you'd be attending. I wouldn't miss it, Marcus replied evenly. She gestured toward a seat in the back. Discreet. Dismissible. Marcus scanned the room, then walked to the front row and sat beside Jaden. The room stilled. In a school where hierarchy mattered more than curriculum, that single act was an earthquake. The quiet boy's father had not only shown up, he had arrived. One by one, students began their presentations. Global investment portfolios. Startup accelerator stories. Pharmaceutical lobbying networks. Miss Bennett lavished each with applause. Then she read the next name. Her tone dipped. Jaden Miles. Jaden stood, his hands steady this time. My name is Jaden Miles. My dad works at the Pentagon. He's part of the cybersecurity operations division. He helps protect the country by stopping threats before they happen. A hush fell. Chase Edmonds smirked again just like before. But the laugh didn't come. Even he could feel the change. Jaden continued. That means when someone tries to hack into a hospital or a military server or an airport control tower, he's the one who stops it. He turned slightly, met his father's eyes. He protects people who don't even know they're in danger. Silence. No giggles. No snorts. Just the weight of truth, spoken plainly without apology. Miss Bennett stepped in, forcing a smile. Thank you, Jaden. That was quite an improvement over earlier this week. She turned toward Marcus. And you, sir, what exactly do you do at the Pentagon? Marcus met her gaze. I lead strategic counter-cyber operations. My clearance is above top secret. I work on identifying foreign threats before they can reach domestic systems, including schools. Her smile cracked. Before she could reply, the classroom door opened. A man in a dark suit leaned in, whispered something in Marcus' ear. Marcus stood. Excuse me. I'll return shortly. He left without haste. But the tension that followed him stayed. Miss Bennett faltered. Let's move on to our next presentation. But no one was listening. Jaden sat straighter now. Leo looked at him with something like awe. The classroom was buzzing. Not with noise, but with awareness. In the hallway, Marcus walked quickly with the agent. Where? West Wing stairwell. Possible breach. Internal credentials used for override. Marcus's jaw clenched. Where's Jaden? Still in room 204. But sir, someone else might already be inside. Marcus turned. Then we move. Now. Back in the classroom, the lights flickered. Just once. The projector froze. The hallway grew silent. Then the voice came over the intercom. Attention all students and faculty. Please remain in your current locations. This is not a drill. Panic began to spread like smoke. Marcus returned a moment later. He wasn't the calm father now. He was command. His badge now fully displayed, he stood at the front of the room and spoke in a tone that silenced everything else. There's a credible threat targeting this institution. We are in lockdown. Agents are securing the premises. Everyone in this room is to stay exactly where they are. Gasp. Confusion. Fear. What kind of threat? One parent asked. The kind you never see coming until it's standing right in front of you. Miss Bennett trembled now. Mr. Miles, Jaden spoke first. I wasn't lying. She turned to him. Her face pale. Marcus looked between them. Miss Bennett, he said sharply, this is not the time. He turned to the room. Someone inside this building has compromised our security. They're not after the school. They're after certain students. Students with government ties. Silence. Jaden whispered, Is it because of me? Marcus walked over, knelt, and met his eyes. You did nothing wrong. But they're here, because of you, Jaden said. Marcus nodded. And now they know who you are. But they underestimated one thing. What? Marcus smiled. You. Suddenly the intercom crackled again. Suspicious activity detected near west stairwell. Possible unauthorized access. Marcus turned to the agents. Lock this room down. No one in. No one out. Then he looked at Jaden. Stay with your truth. He stood, checked the device in his pocket, and stepped into the corridor. And just like that, the storm walked out the door. Because sometimes the most dangerous men don't raise their voices. They just step into the hall when no one else dares to. The west stairwell at Oak Ridge Prep was quiet, too quiet. Marcus Miles moved through it like a shadow. His steps made no sound. His eyes flicked from corner to corner, absorbing details others would miss entirely. The fresh scuff on the tile, the slightly ajar fire door, the faint chemical scent that didn't match the school's usual lemon disinfectant. His years in clandestine ops taught him one thing: danger rarely announced itself. It crept in softly, pretending to belong. He spotted the man almost immediately. Gray custodial uniform. Badge clipped just slightly off-center. Moving slowly toward the exit, calm, too calm. Marcus called out, low and measured, "You're not staff." The man turned. Young, shaven, composed. His eyes slid over Marcus, landing on the Pentagon badge. "You weren't supposed to be here yet," the man said. "I adjusted my schedule," Marcus replied evenly. There was a silence, brief, electric. Then Marcus raised his voice just slightly, enough to be picked up by the hidden mic in his collar. "Confirmation, target located. North Hall stairwell C. Request silent intercept." The man took a half-step backward toward the fire door. Marcus matched him with a half-step forward. "You move, you disappear," Marcus warned. "And you don't want that." The man smiled faintly. "Disappearing is what I'm paid for." Then his hand twitched toward a small black object at his hip. Marcus reacted instantly. He lunged. They crashed through the fire door together, tumbling onto the cement stairwell landing. The device, about the size of a flash drive, skittered away, clinking on the steps. The man twisted, trying to elbow Marcus in the ribs, but Marcus was faster. He blocked, pivoted, and drove a sharp knee into the intruder's thigh, knocking him off balance. 3 moves later, Marcus had him pinned, face down, arms locked behind his back. "Who sent you?" Marcus demanded. No answer. Just a bitter chuckle. "You think I'm the only one?" Marcus leaned closer. "What did you put in the system?" Another smile. The man turned his head slightly. "You should ask your son." Marcus's stomach turned just as he saw it. The twitch of the jaw, the subtle movement of molars grinding. "Cyanide." "Wait." Too late. A muffled crack, a twitch, and the man went limp. Dead. Silent. Smiling. Agents poured in seconds later. One glanced at the body. "Is he dead?" Marcus confirmed. "He had a capsule." Another agent retrieved the small black device. Encrypted relay. Likely syncing school data to an offshore server. Marcus stood, already dialing his encrypted line. "Get it to Langley. I want a full trace. And I want to know if any other operatives are in the building." The agent nodded. "Yes, sir." Marcus didn't hesitate. He pulled out his secure phone and dialed Jaden. "What?" No answer. Again. No answer. On the 3rd ring, "Dad? Are you still in 204? "Yeah. We haven't moved." "What happened?" "Nothing you need to worry about. Stay put. Stay near the agents." He ended the call, his breath sharp. His thoughts raced. If this man wasn't alone, someone else might already be one step ahead. Because if they couldn't breach the Pentagon, they'd come through the back door. The children. The homes. The bloodlines. Back in room 204, Jaden sat tense, his hands clasped tight in his lap. The agent stationed at the door remained alert, but he could feel something was off. Like a bad note in a familiar song. Then it happened. His school tablet, dark since the lockdown, flickered to life. Just once. A faint symbol appeared in the lower corner. Not an app. Not something from the school's operating system. It was a ghosted port access icon. Something only someone trained to recognize a digital breach would notice. But Jaden had watched his father enough. He knew what it meant. Someone was watching. His eyes snapped up. He scanned the classroom. That's when he saw him. The tech assistant. The one who hadn't spoken. Who didn't make eye contact. Who wasn't on staff before today. The man's eyes met Jaden's, and something passed between them. A flicker of alarm. He moved. Jaden acted first. He stood, knocking over his chair. "Get down." The agent turned just as the tech assistant reached for his belt. Not a gun, but a device. A signal scrambler. He threw it to the floor. The room went dark. Lights blinked out. The blinds snapped shut. Tablets, phones, all dead. Screams erupted. But Jaden didn't freeze. He ducked beneath the desk, yanked his backpack open, and pulled out the small encrypted flash drive his father had given him a month ago. A backup beacon, Marcus had said. Only use it if everything else fails. He shoved it into his tablet's port. A pulse of blue light. Miles away, Marcus's tracker lit up. Beacon triggered. Room 204. Unauthorized signal disruption. He didn't wait for approval. He ran. Inside room 204, the attacker grabbed a student, Leo. Of all people. The boy who once tried to defend Jaden. The agent lunged to intercept, but the attacker hurled a stun baton. It struck the agent squarely in the ribs. He crumpled. The room was chaos. Jaden crawled fast, heart pounding. He reached the attacker just as Leo struggled against his grip. With a surge of courage, Jaden leapt, tackling the man from behind. He wasn't strong enough to pin him, but he didn't need to be. The baton fell. Leo broke free. And in that moment, the door burst open. Marcus stormed in. Weapon drawn. No words. Just one precise shot. The fake tech crumpled to the floor. Agents flooded the room seconds later. Students screamed. But it was over. Marcus rushed to Jaden, kneeling beside him. "Are you hurt?" "I'm okay," Jaden said, panting. "I saw the signal. I recognized it. The breach pattern. I remembered what you showed me." Marcus stared at him, stunned. "You what?" "I triggered the beacon." Marcus's face changed. Not with fear. Not with pride. With realization. His son hadn't just survived. He had fought back. And in doing so, he had saved the entire room. In the hours that followed, evidence was collected. News vans gathered outside Oakage. Principal Avery gave a trembling statement to the press. And inside a hallway now cleared of danger, Marcus and Jaden sat side by side. Jaden looked up. "Was this all because of you?" Marcus nodded. "Partly. But also because of you." "Why?" "Because power," Marcus said, "isn't always about what you know. Sometimes it's who you raise." Jaden lowered his eyes. They didn't want files. They wanted futures. Marcus smiled faintly. They picked the wrong one. The next morning, the headlines screamed what Oakage Prep tried to bury the night before. Cyber terror plot foiled at elite DC prep school. Pentagon officials' son targeted. Internal breach exposes security risks in private education. Son of top Pentagon operative helps avert school-wide crisis. But inside the Miles household, things were still. Not quiet, still. Like the moment before the wind shifts after a storm. Marcus stood by the window with a mug of black coffee, watching the empty street. No black SUV. No flickering street lamp. No surveillance. Just morning sun pouring over the sidewalk like nothing had happened. But something had. Jaden entered the kitchen in silence, backpack slung loosely, moving slower than usual. Not out of fear but wait. He felt older. Marcus set the mug down. "You good?" Jaden nodded, but it was a measured nod. "I keep thinking about Leo. He could have been the one they grabbed." Marcus leaned against the counter. "You stopped that from happening." "Barely." Marcus tilted his head. "Barely is enough. It's the difference between almost and never again." Jaden sat at the table, fidgeting with the hem of his sleeve. "Do you think they'll try again?" Marcus's answer was honest. "They won't try the same way. But men like that don't give up. They adapt. And so do we." He slid a small box across the table. Jaden opened it. Inside was a custom titanium USB drive. Engraved on one side, "Legacy isn't inherited. It's earned." "What is this?" Jaden asked. "A copy of the software you activated yesterday. With upgrades. You recognized a threat most trained adults would have missed. That matters. This is your key. But you only use it when you know you're ready." Jaden stared at it for a long moment. Then closed the box and tucked it carefully into his backpack. Across town, Oakage Prep wasn't the same either. The campus, once polished and confident, now buzzed with tension. Security guards flanked every hallway. Several teachers were replaced with vetted, cleared personnel. Every student's device underwent a system-wide scan. And every camera had been replaced, this time with government oversight. Principal Avery had resigned quietly, no press, no send-off. Miss Bennett, though, remained. For now. Jaden noticed her immediately when he arrived. Her hair was neater, her smile thinner, and most surprisingly, she looked directly at him. Not through him. He walked into room 204 and paused by her desk. She stood quickly. "Jaden," she said, voice unsure. "Can I have a word?" He didn't nod. Didn't smile. He simply stood. "I owe you an apology," she began. "Not just for the way I doubted your presentation, but for the way I dismissed you. I misjudged you. And worse, I let others do the same." Jaden waited. "I've enrolled in an equity and sensitivity training program," she continued. "It's part of a federal review, instigated by your father's team." Jaden's eyebrows raised slightly. "You're being investigated?" "Reviewed," she corrected quickly. "But yes." Pause. "I'm sorry, Jaden." Jaden looked at her for a long time. Then said, "Thank you." and walked to his seat. Forgiveness wasn't instant, but awareness, that was a start. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., Marcus Miles stood before a closed committee session of defense and education leaders. Behind him, an encrypted drive carried logs, breach signals, and metadata linking the attackers to a known rogue unit believed inactive since Syria. He had traced the digital signature to a private intelligence contractor, likely a front for an Eastern European espionage network. This wasn't a test, Marcus told them. It was a blueprint. They weren't stealing data. They were studying access, identifying weak links between government security and family infrastructure. They were going after our children. He clicked to the final slide, a list of 8 students. Names redacted. Jaden's listed as Tier A primary. They came through the school not because of what it lacked, but because of what it assumed. That expensive halls and polished names made it safe. They were wrong. The room remained silent. Then a senior senator leaned forward. What do you recommend? Marcus's voice was steady. New guidelines. Federal vetting for private institutions connected to high-clearance families. Mandatory breach detection protocols. Background screening for faculty with digital access. Data segmentation policies. He paused. And most importantly, teach these kids. Show them what to look for. The next generation doesn't need to be protected from technology. They need to be fluent in it. The recommendation passed unanimously. A new initiative was born, one combining the Department of Education and the Pentagon in a first-of-its-kind hybrid security task force. Marcus would serve as its quiet architect. And Jaden? He just returned to school. He walked the hallways now not as an anomaly but as something else, visible. People didn't laugh anymore. They nodded. They watched him differently. Not with awe. Not yet. But with acknowledgement. Miss Bennett even asked him to help design the school's new student-led digital safety initiative. Jaden agreed, not out of charity but because change only happens when you help build it. Weeks passed. Peace returned. But Jaden never forgot what his dad said, they won't come the same way twice. One evening, Jaden sat with Marcus on the back porch. A storm rolled in on the horizon, thunder muttering in the clouds. Why do you think they chose me? Jaden asked. Marcus leaned back watching the sky. Because they thought you were the weak link. Jaden turned to him. But I wasn't. Marcus smiled, soft and proud. No. You were the firewall. The final month of the semester passed with an eerie calm. But beneath the surface, Oakage Prep was changing. Federal consultants now visited weekly, masked under the label of IT specialists. A discrete training module was quietly introduced to upperclassmen, digital awareness and national security basics. The brochure didn't name names but everyone knew who inspired it. Jaden walked the halls with a new kind of silence, not the silence of invisibility but of presence. Students who once smirked now nodded. Teachers who once ignored him now asked questions. Even Chase Edmonds had toned down his sneers. Leo returned to Jaden's side like nothing had ever shifted between them. And Jaden, to his own surprise, let it happen. But even in this new peace, Jaden knew it was borrowed. Not permanent. It never was. One Thursday morning, he walked into room 204 to find Miss Bennett waiting by his desk, not at hers. She held a thin folder in her hand. I want you to see something, she said. Jaden opened the folder. Inside was a draft of the new Digital Shadows student initiative, an idea Miss Bennett said she had been developing with him. But as Jaden read, he realized she hadn't just drafted it. She had taken his story, the moment he saw the breach, triggered the beacon, warned the class, and used it as the foundation for the entire project proposal. You're publishing this? Jaden asked quietly. I'm submitting it for a regional award, she said. It could expand to other private schools. Jaden's eyes narrowed. You didn't ask me. Miss Bennett flushed. I assumed. That's the problem, he interrupted. You assumed. Like before. She stood there awkwardly. For the first time her polished exterior cracked. I'm sorry, she said again. Really? I didn't mean to steal credit. Jaden nodded slowly. Then don't submit it, yet. Let's write it together. Properly. She hesitated. Then said, okay. It was a start. That evening, Jaden returned home to find Marcus standing on the back porch again, watching the street like he always did. The sun was low, casting long golden bars of light across the neighborhood. Miss Bennett tried to use my story, Jaden said, walking up beside him. I figured she might. I stopped her. Marcus nodded. Good. Power isn't just what you hold. It's knowing when someone else is trying to borrow it without earning it. Jaden looked up. You think it's over? What happened? No, Marcus said simply. Nothing like that is ever over. It's dormant. He glanced at his son. But I think you changed something permanent. Not just at Oakage. Then what? In you. Pause. Then, we've been watching the servers by the way, Marcus added. No more access attempts. No new pings. Whoever was behind it, Gregor Laskin or someone else, they're quiet now. Jaden considered that. So we won. Marcus smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. For now. Back in Washington, the interagency task force Marcus spearheaded was already producing results. Funding had increased. A pilot cybersecurity curriculum was rolling out at elite prep schools from Connecticut to California. And an internal database was now tracking early breach patterns through academic institutions. Schools, academies, even summer programs. What the world hadn't realized Marcus had, the battlefield had moved. It no longer started at embassies or data centers. It started at family dinner tables, PDA meetings, classroom presentations, and someone had finally listened. One morning, Jaden came downstairs to find Marcus placing a sealed manila envelope on the dining table. What's that? Marcus tapped it twice. Your next assignment. Jaden blinked. For school. For life. Inside was a copy of his security clearance application. You've been approved for conditional internship placement at the Federal Cybersecurity Youth Division, Marcus explained. Jaden's eyes widened. That's real? You earned it. Your beacon activation, your reaction under pressure. Langley signed off. I'm not even 15. Exactly, Marcus said. That's how early they're watching now. You ready? Jaden looked down at the folder. It wasn't just paper. It was possibility. Legacy. Truth. I think so. Later that week, Jaden stood in front of a small audience in the Oakage auditorium. Students, parents, and visiting officials. He wasn't nervous. He was prepared. He presented his final project, Digital Shadows. What schools don't see could hurt us all. He walked them through the breach, the code, the overlooked vulnerabilities. But most importantly, he told them about what it meant to be doubted. I wasn't afraid because they didn't believe me, he said. I was afraid because they didn't even try. He paused, looked out over the crowd. But that day when the lights went out and the room went silent, I wasn't thinking about proving anything. I was thinking about Leo, and my classmates, and all the people who never saw me. Because when you get ignored long enough, you start to realize, that's how they get in. Through the cracks where no one's looking. Silence. Then applause. Real. Sustained. Even Miss Bennett stood. From the back of the room Marcus watched. No applause. Just a slow, deep breath. This was what legacy looked like. Not medals. Not titles. But a boy, standing straight, speaking truth in the very place where it was once denied. Weeks passed and Oakage slowly returned to its rhythm, but the tone had changed permanently. Teachers no longer made assumptions out loud. Students watched Jaden differently, not with derision or pity, but with a strange mix of caution and respect. The school's new digital safety program, Project Echo, had been approved, and Jaden had been officially named its student founder. His name now appeared on a polished plaque near the computer science lab, just beneath the names of the donors who had once pretended not to see him. But Jaden wasn't chasing recognition. He was preparing for what came next. The internship with the Federal Cybersecurity Youth Division began over spring break. Twice a week, Jaden took the train to a secure location in D.C., where he was handed a clearance badge, a workstation, and a mentor who didn't look at him like a kid who got lucky. They called him Tier A, a title that made his stomach twist the first time he heard it, but not out of fear. Out of understanding. He was on a list because he mattered. And someone had tried to use that. Now he would learn to make sure they couldn't. At home, the Miles household was still quiet. Still deliberate. But softer. There were more shared dinners. More stories. Fewer things left unsaid. One Friday evening, as Jaden was finishing homework at the kitchen table, Marcus came in holding a small wooden box. He set it down. What's this? Jaden asked. Marcus opened it slowly, revealing a metal inside. Dark bronze, the edges worn, the inscription faded. It wasn't shiny. It wasn't made to be. It's from an old operation, Marcus said. Syria. The one that ended everything for Laskin, except him. They gave this to the team. Said it was quiet bravery under impossible odds. Jaden looked up. Why are you showing me this? Because, Marcus said, that's what you did. Quiet bravery. Under impossible odds. No gun, No training. Just instinct and truth. He slid the box forward. You keep it now. Jaden swallowed hard. I'm not you though, he said softly. Not yet. Marcus smiled. Exactly. And that's why you deserve it. The next morning, Jaden returned to Oakage for the official launch of Project Echo. Press were invited. A few federal representatives. Even one of the secretary's aides. Miss Bennett introduced him with a sincerity Jaden had never seen in her before. Sometimes, she said, we mistake silence for insignificance. And sometimes the quietest voice is the one that ends up protecting us all. Please welcome Jaden Miles. He took the stage with calm steps and scanned the crowd. Faces he once feared. Now listening. My name is Jaden, he began. And I was targeted, not because I was weak but because someone thought no one would believe me. He paused. But I wasn't alone. My father stood behind me. My truth stood in front of me. And when it mattered most, I didn't freeze, I acted. He told them about the breach. About the silence. About the man in the gray uniform. He didn't dramatize it. He didn't embellish. He didn't need to. Because sometimes the truth told simply is the most powerful weapon of all. When he finished, there was no slow clap. No overproduced standing ovation. The entire room stood at once. Marcus watched from the side of the stage. This time he let himself smile. That night, Jaden asked, do you think they'll ever come back? Marcus didn't answer right away. Then, I think there will always be someone. Somewhere. Watching. Waiting. Jaden nodded. But now they know I'm watching back. Marcus looked at him, eyes soft. Yes. Now they know. Some truths don't need to shout to be heard. Some heroes don't wear uniforms. And sometimes the smallest action, speaking the truth, pressing a button, standing up in a room that laughed at you, can stop a storm before it starts. Jaden Miles didn't just change his school. He changed how we see those we underestimate. And when the world laughed at his truth, he didn't fight with noise. He waited. He stood. And then he proved it. Legacy isn't what we leave behind. It's what we protect while we're still here. If this story reminded you of a moment you were doubted, underestimated, or stood up for someone else, share it in the comments. We read every single one. Like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who needs to be reminded. Silence isn't weakness. It's strength. Waiting to speak. This is True Echo. We tell the stories they didn't see coming. And we're just getting started.